Hello everyone, my name is Salmanidis. Welcome to Victorian Opera's web series, 15 Years of New Opera. In today's episode, we're taking a look at the art of collaboration. Collaboration is at the centre of everything we do, and is fundamental to the development of exciting new works. Over the last 15 years, Victorian Opera has been lucky enough to collaborate with other arts organisations and sectors, and has also provided an environment for creatives and artists to come together to collaborate, develop and present new works. We're about to take a closer look at two commissioned works that were developed and presented as part of two different collaborations. In 2016, Victorian Opera and Circus Oz joined forces to present Laughter and Tears, a double bill opera in 2 acts. This work saw two entirely different art forms come together on stage to bring audiences a wonderfully entertaining work. To discuss the Laughter and Tears collaboration, I'm joined by former General Manager and co-CEO of Circus Oz, Lou Oppenheim, and Victorian Opera's CEO, Elizabeth Hill-Cooper. Michael Petruccelli, one of the singers who appeared in the opera, also joined me to chat about his experience in the rehearsal room and how he found working with circus performers. So how did the collaboration between Circus Oz and Victorian Opera come about?
Well, I remember Circus Oz used to be based down in Port Melbourne, and we were exploring different opportunities, and I'd come from the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra and knew Richard through that, and we were kind of just exploring ways that we could work together as a collaboration. So it started off, as many of these collaborations do, as essentially a dialogue and a chat about what might be possible. He came and overwhelmed us with lots of Italian words and opera terms, and we talked circus back at him, and then it ended up with a wonderful thing on stage. So as it does, it came through contacts, talking about what might be possible when you bring two very diverse but somewhat not that dissimilar art forms occasionally together.
Can you explain how the collaboration worked? So did both companies contribute to the development of the storyline and the selection of music specifically for the first act in Laughter?
That was really Emile Volk, who was our director, and Richard worked very closely together because they were trying to marry the story, I suppose, this sub-story of Pagliacci, which was the second piece in the collaboration. They were trying to marry that story in a comedic sense. So Emile, with his very extensive circus and operatic history through his parentage, and Richard worked closely together for that one.
And then the layering on top of that, Circus Oz had worked with Emile beforehand and knew him well, and particularly there was a lead person within from our end, from Kate Fryer, who also runs a fabulous performance company called Dislocate, as well as being very closely associated with Circus Oz. So the physicality that came about then was kind of then the layering that we put into it from a collaboration perspective. So the original framework, which is quite an unusual thing for Circus Oz, because Circus Oz essentially doesn't work to a script. It doesn't work to, and I can see Lippy's face in that conversation, it was one of the joys and possibly one of the challenges. There aren't, we create from a blank piece of paper. There are incredible skills within ensembles, but essentially there isn't a framework. There's a framework within how you create a show, but there isn't anything written down when you start a rehearsal period. So that was, you know, an interesting journey, having something that is opera has to be by its nature so heavily scheduled, so heavily kind of structured, whereas the creation process for Circus Oz is a lot more organic and free-flowing and kind of developmental and layering different things on top of each other. So two very different creative processes that then came together on a rehearsal floor.
That sort of leads into my next question, because I was about to ask you, like, you know, the loose structure of circus. So how did the process change working with it in the confines of an operatic setting? Who had to adapt to what, or was it sort of met in the middle?
We sort of both took the best bits of both bits, both the opera bits and both the circus bits, and we really just came up with a framework about how to put that together. One of the great things about this particular collaboration was that we were able to do it in the Circus Oz studios, and that is set up with all of the bells and whistles that you would need. Multiple blackboards so you can kind of scope it out, and so there was a lot of sitting down every morning in a big group meeting saying, what are we going to achieve today, how are we going to manage that, a lot of blackboard writing, a lot of getting out on the floor, trying stuff, coming back in, writing some more, trying again.
I think as part of that also, what helped in that process, live music is always part of Circus Oz. It's a different type of live music, but that the empathy and creation process with live music is always part of what Circus Oz does on stage as well. So, and opera obviously has a physical component associated with it. There's different emphasis in each of the art forms with those things, but I think we both kind of understood those levers in terms of how you create a show and how they could come together, albeit in a very different context.
Yeah. So how did the singers and the circus performers, like, was there a bit of a period where they sort of had to work out how each other worked, or did it sort of come together quite well?
Nah, they just jumped in. Everybody jumped in together. They were awesome. It was so much fun.
Yeah, my office at the time at Circus Oz looks down onto the main rehearsal floor, and you know, looking down on one of the particular singers actually trying out some of the acrobatic moves. You know, someone I would never have said, you know, everyone, I think that was a real openness and a respect for each other's craft that I think really added to that on the floor, that each knew what, you know, they were experts in, but were also willing to kind of appreciate and try out or test different elements of other people's crafts, which created a real sense. One of the things we didn't want to do in this collaboration was have it being very clearly them and us, or a division. We wanted, actually, so many of those types of collaborations end up being something with something else, or, you know, it's not actually a true intermingled collaboration. And our real aim in this was actually, sometimes you couldn't see where the circus finished and the opera started. We wanted it to be a really co-joined collaboration.
What characters did you play in Laughter and Tears?
So in Laughter and Tears, I played the character of Arlecchino, and in Tears, I played the character of Beppe, and Tears was Pagliacci, Leon Cavallo's Pagliacci, and Beppe is an actor in the touring company, and Pagliacci, it's a play within a play as well. The second half is a play within a play. And so I played the character of, again, Arlecchino. And Arlecchino is this very mischievous character, always moving, always very dynamic, and the lover of the beautiful Colombina, which was played by Elvira Fatikova. And it was a wonderful production to be involved in.
Yeah. So on that, how did the rehearsal process for the production compare to any of the other operatic productions that you've performed in?
Yeah, it was extremely different for a whole host of different reasons. So generally with an operatic rehearsal process, you know, you prepare your music at the start and you're well off the book by that stage, you know, your notes and your music off by heart. And then you block it, which is a very basic, a basic physical way that the opera will work on stage, and then you fine-tune as you go throughout the process. With the circus performers, it was a very different process because they are always very physical. And so the hardest part with marrying the two together, the two respective art forms, was really figuring out how each art form worked in the rehearsal space, and then trying to find the link between the two. And so I guess what we all discovered was, and because Emil Wolk was our director, he was very good at guiding us down the path. He had his ideas of what the overall structure will be, but he really sort of allowed the performers to do what they did and to find out how we actually work together, because this is a combination and a collaboration that doesn't often happen.
Yeah.
And so in the end, I think we all decided that the circus performers were going to be a physical manifestation of what the opera singers were performing, what the text and the sentiment of the text was. And so I think that became a very effective overall outcome that the audience, hopefully enjoyed.
So there's a scene in Laughter in the first act of the opera where the stagehands are trying to help you join Nedda on the balcony, and you sort of become part of the circus act. Can you take us through how you worked with the circus performers involved in that scene in the rehearsal room to put it all together?
Of course. So as a bit of background, this the laughter component of Laughter and Tears was an operatic double bill. So this first half was a pastiche of, or a patchwork of different arie antiche, it's called, and they're sort of songs and arias just before the time of grand opera and of the 15th, 16th centuries, early 17th centuries. And so it was trying to, Laughter was, this patchwork, and we had to find a way to connect each of these pieces and madrigals with a through line that the audience could follow. And so what we decided to do was the singers were going to be quite serious in the way that they performed and very traditional in the way they performed. And the circus performers, who in this case, in this scene, we had Kate, Luke, DJ, and Jeff. They were the stagehands, and in the background you could see them whilst we were performing. You could see them, sweeping up or something, or cleaning up what we'd just messed up on stage. And however, in this scene, I thought it wise to include them as part of the production to help me get to Nedda, who was being held not captive, but her guardian, the captain, Il Capitano, he wouldn't allow me to see her. And so instead of going through the front door, I decided to go to the top balcony and go through her balcony window to see her. And I couldn't do that by myself. So seeing that these stagehands were doing what they were doing in the background, I decided to call them over and get them to help me. Now, being the circus performers, they were suggesting to me a whole host of hilarious and extremely physical ways of getting me up there. And so the process of rehearsing this whole thing was initially to find out what I could and couldn't do. And from a physical perspective, because, I've got a build as well that is a little bit larger than some. And so, there were limitations as to what I could do. But, I was always used to throw myself into these situations. And so, Luke, DJ, Kate, and Jeff sort of taught me a few different ways of displacing my weight in a safe way and in a way that worked with them, because you had to be very safe and to try and really prevent these injuries and all that sort of thing. So that was a big consideration as well. And we created this sort of slapstick process of, me trying to climb up all the bodies, or, trying to jump on them and then jump up to the balcony, which then resulted in me just falling all over them. And it was a wonderful process to be involved. As I said before, it was extremely liberating. But, and it took a lot of trial and error. That was a big thing as well, a lot of play, a lot of trial and error. And I think we did create a scene in which was effective comically, and was also a safe way of getting me up there and entertaining the audience.
The Snow Queen, a community opera written by composer Gordon Carey and writer John Kinsella, was staged exclusively in the regional town of Wodonga in 2017. This work, which is based on Hans Christian Andersen's tale, was developed in collaboration with the Department of Film and Animation at Swinburne University. Professor Kim Vinks, who led the development of the digital scenography used in the opera, caught up with me to talk about the collaboration and how the Snow Queen came to life using 3D technology. So Kim, how did the collaboration between the Motion Lab at Swinburne University and Victorian Opera come about?
Richard approached us, this is some years ago now, to make a small spot in Sunday in the Park, which calls for something called a chromaloom that nobody has ever seen before.
What is a chromaloom?
The context is it's some futuristic visualization of painting that nobody has ever seen before, and it's so far in advance of its time that nobody knows what it is. So we decided to make a three-dimensional projection. So people put on their 3D glasses in the opera. Everyone in the cast puts on their 3D glasses, looking for this amazing thing. So then we had the whole painting deconstructed in 3 dimensions. So flew forward and back, and in the end, the cogs pierce through the painting and just fly out over the audience's heads. So that was really exciting. We did that. It was a 1-minute slot, I think, within the opera. So Richard and I were then talking really for probably over a year. We sort of hatched this idea of digital sonography using 3D filming and of 3D projecting techniques as a way of presenting an opera with all of the bells and whistles from a scenic point of view, where you can't necessarily it's not necessarily economic to drive all of that stuff around, great big heavy sets. So we were looking at this idea of if we can do a set with a screen and with a projector and 3D glasses, because when we began this, it was right at the time when 3D movies were starting to kind of come to the fore. So our thought was, why don't we have this, visually lush sort of exotic technology, so we can basically extend the theatre space way behind the screen and have things, come out to engage the audience. I call it the Z-axis, towards and away. And, you really, when things come at you in stereo, you really do feel them. It's a very visceral feel. So we put together an application to the Australian Research Council for a linkage partnership, which we were awarded. And we made and evaluated 3 operas over that time. The first 2 while I was still at Deakin Motion Lab, and then for the Snow Queen, I moved by that time and established the Embodied Movement Design Studio at Swinburne. So we did the last one there, and our goal was really to test and sort of evaluate this kind of virtual sonography technology as a way of presenting bigger sets and more elaborate sets than you could necessarily haul into or haul around regional Australia.
So what exactly is digital sonography?
Sonography, essentially, that's projected. So it's virtual in the sense, it may be projected, sometimes it can be on an LED screen, but the idea is that you're putting images behind the performers rather than actual set. Although I have to say, across all of the 3 works that we did, but particularly the Snow Queen, what we ended up doing was really integrating a built set with a digital set. And the built sets were a lot smaller, a lot less elaborate than the ones than you would have if you were just having a built set. But just something about it became less about replacing sonography as about extending sonography. So doing some incredible visual things that really worked with the action. And of course, people have been doing digital sonography, you know, since like the 1900s. I mean, it's not that the concept of projected image, since there were projected images, and before then there were things like magic lanterns and different early theatre technologies. The idea of projecting images behind performers is not at all new. But what was new about this was the three-dimensional aspect of it, and being able to do it. The way we worked is we built this whole scene, the scene of the action, in a game engine. So what that meant was that game engines are meant to work in real time, so that as a player, you push your controls, you drive your character around through the environment, you click things to make things happen. What this allowed us to do was to really have like the virtual set not just drop down when things needed to change, but it was like you were actually in it and the characters were in it. So we were able to change scenes by literally changing the world around. So it's a different thing. And also the stereoscopic aspect meant that we were actually overlaying two spaces. So we're actually overlaying the physical space with a virtual space. And that's really interesting, because then you get into the realm of, you know, I guess a kind of magic realism, really, what could be there, but it actually really couldn't be in real life. And that sort of sense of the fantastic, which was, for the Snow Queen, that was just a fabulous kind of thing to work with. You know, it's exactly like sonography, but it's just that it's got you have a virtual world overlaid over the real world, so you can have characters walk in. We actually, in the Snow Queen, we actually motion captured the performer and built a virtual Snow Queen. So she was projected out into the middle of the stage, about 3 meters off the ground. So she was this incredibly imposing, sort of gorgeous CG figure, and she actually sung her aria as a virtual character. So that let us, you know, kind of play with that idea of the Snow Queen's character and the fact that she is fantastic, and we really made her fantastic, as in fantastical.
Was that done beforehand? Did Michelle, who was singing the Snow Queen, come in beforehand, and then, or was that during the performance?
Yeah, it was beforehand, and but she sung the role from off stage. So we had the projection, which was her motion capture, and she was singing it from off stage. So it was a very spectacular kind of staging of her.
So can you explain the process involved in bringing the sets that Candice designed, Candice McAllister, for the Snow Queen, using the 3D technology? Was it a collaborative process between her and your team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it was really Candice, myself, and Peter Darby, the lighting designer for the work. We worked very closely together. Candice did the designing, so she was leading the visual look and feel. But we would go back and forth with ideas about what that could be like in VR, and I'm working VR mostly there, so what this could be like in stereo, because the two things are very the one is an extension of the other for me. But I was able to put, imagine what this was going to look like in stereo. And Peter had worked with us on some of the earlier productions as well. So for this one, we integrated we integrated all the elements. So we matched the lighting design with the colours. We matched the lighting in the virtual world with Peter's lighting in the real world, so that we had that sort of visual gestalt, that it all worked together. So very collaborative, and to and fro storyboards, with us sending, Candice sending us designs, us sending Candice back, and Peter sort of tweak designs or different ideas. And we worked like that. It was over several months.
So it takes so many people to put an opera on. How many people are involved on your end of developing the 3D side of it?
Well, we had a wonderful team of 3 technical artists, Stephen Gill, Casey Richardson and Casey Delbo, who came to work with me at Swinburne. I had worked with 2 of them before at Deakin, and they are absolutely fabulous technical artists, and created the whole environment for the show, the whole, all of the effects, and, just stunning work. So that was also just a pleasure to work with those wonderful people.
Thank you to all the guests who joined me in today's episode, and to you for watching. Next time, we explore the art of the pastiche, taking a look at the operas that bring together music from different composers. Until then, take care.